Let's talk a little bit about validating our code. I'm just going to go to an example page. This is the pricing.html page that we just recently finished in the last exercise. And when you're working on these exercises and on future exercises in this course, you may run into problems where things aren't displaying correctly in your browser. Or perhaps even when you go to build your own site project, you'll be writing some code and maybe something won't be displaying correctly, or things won't be positioned in the way you'd like them to be on the page. So a good way to check that is to validate the code and see if the code is actually written properly. So one way we can do that is we can use an online validator. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to highlight all of the code on this page. On the pricing page here, I'll just click and drag, or you can do select all, Command A on Mac or Control A on Windows, and that'll select everything. And then we're going to copy this code, which is of course Command C on Mac or Control C on Windows. And then let's go jump over to a browser. And I'm going to go ahead and search for validator.w3.org, like that. So this brings up validator.w3.org, and this is at the w3.org website, which is the W3C, the World Wide Web Consortium, which sounds like a kind of like a creepy cult, but actually these are people who are maintaining the HTML language. So they're determining the rules and the proper way of writing and the proper usage for HTML and CSS. So if you ever want to know for sure how to write something or how to use an element, you can always come here and check out their documentation at w3.org. Right now we're just going to be using their online validator. You can see there are several ways to validate. One thing you can do is you can put in an address here. So I could upload my site, and my site could exist at my domain name, like mysite.com, and I can just paste in that URL and have it validate pages from that site. You can also validate by file upload. So I could choose a file from my computer and I could test the code that way. I could validate the code from there. We're going to use this third tab here that says validate by direct input. And you can see then there's a little box for copying and pasting, and we can do edit paste, which is Command V or on Mac or Control V on Windows, and that'll paste your code in there. So we can see the code we recently wrote, and I'm going to go ahead and click check. And the good news is we wrote that correctly. It says this document was successfully checked as HTML5. Anytime you get a green bar at the top, then you did well. Everything's working properly. Otherwise, if you get a red bar here, then it's going to tell you that there's something wrong in the code. Let's create that scenario. So currently everything's written correctly, but let's say that I was typing in a hurry, and let's say I forgot to write this closing slash. So it kind of looks like there's an opening H2 and then another H2. This is a very common mistake, is oops, I forgot to put the closing slash here. Another common mistake is forgetting to close an element. So what if I forget this closing tag on the paragraph, like that? So here's two errors. These are two really common errors that I see. So let's go ahead and resave this file, and we'll copy this here. I'll copy all this code, and we're going to go ahead and bring that back into the validator here. All right, and we're going to paste, and then I'm going to click the revalidate button down here. Uh-oh, that time it found errors in the code, so it knows there's some things wrong. So it says errors found while checking this document. So let's go see what these errors are here. Okay, and this is the area that I'm really concerned about, is this red text here that says output 4 errors. So let's see where it's finding these errors at. It tells us here on line 10, heading cannot be a child of another heading. Interesting. So it sees this H2 tag. Let's zoom in on that for a sec here. This is the first error message. It says that this H2 tag here, see this little red mark, cannot be a child of another heading. So it thinks we're trying to nest a heading inside of another one, and it's saying that that's specifically on line 10. Okay, so we can go back to our code here, and because I have line numbers, I can go down to line 10 and I can find the issue and say, oh, in fact, I see what they're talking about here. I need to have a closing slash mark here. So I'll change that and then save. And we can revalidate, and that'll solve at least one of the errors there. And let's come back, and I'm going to go ahead and paste this code in here again. I'm going to erase all of it and paste and revalidate. Okay, that was cool. That actually worked that time. It looks like we got away with this p tag, although really it should have thrown an error on that as well. And of course, if you ever visually see these things occurring, you're going to want to clean it up, fix it up yourself by putting in that other closing tag. So whenever you validate, it's going to, usually it'll tell you the exact line where it's seeing the issue, but other times you have to go to that line it tells you to go to, and you have to backtrack and check the code above it to see if something else previously is disrupting the validator on that particular line of code. So that is a good tool to use to troubleshoot and make sure your code is written correctly.